Hello, and thank you for checking out the first video put out by Creek Home Woodworking. Today we're going to be looking at a video on how I make a slim pen. With this video, I'm going to be going through all the steps involved. There'll be some fast forwarding, some video editing, but for the most part you're going to see everything that happens from start to finish when making a custom made pen. In this particular case, like I said, we're going to be doing a slim pen. And as you can see, all the components are here in front of us, including a very nice piece of Zebrawood. It's a nice exotic wood that has a very nice grain, even just as a chunk of wood. But when the pen itself has been cut down to size and finished, it looks beautiful. So right now, I'm going to be taking this piece of wood away, and I'm going to go cut it down to the two components that are going to be used for the barrels, both the bottom and the top barrel. And that's about how long they're going to be once I'm working on them. Over here at the drill press, I have a special vise that I use to drill out the center of each of these blocks of wood. The bit is a very specific size, designed for this specific type of pen. I can't mix and match. I have to make sure that I have all the right drill bits depending on the pen I'm making. So in this particular case, I needed to make sure I had a 7mm drill bit. As I'm drilling, I'll pull out the bit every now and then just to make sure that it doesn't bind, that it doesn't get too full of material, because zebra wood tends to crack if you're not careful. You have to drill all the way through the blank to make sure that your components are going to fit in there. So after I'm done drilling through, nice, perfect, almost centered hole. And then we do the same for the second blank. With these blanks as well, what's been done is I did mark them on one edge to show where they're going to line up on the pen itself, because the tricky part is making sure that the grain flows nice and evenly over the pen. If you drill your holes through, you trim it down to size, and then you build your pen backwards, then it's going to look goofy compared to if you drill it and put it on properly where the grain flows from one barrel to the next. And of course, as I'm talking, you can't see this, but I'm using my hands and swiping from left to right. Back at my table, I'm now going to be sanding off the outsides of these two brass tubes. The brass tubes get glued into the inside of the wooden blanks, and they are what hold the pen together once it's been fully assembled. So the nib gets inserted into it on one end, the turning mechanism gets inserted on the other end. Everything all fits nice and neatly within these brass tubes. And the reason why you sand them is to scuff them up so that the glue that I use has a surface to adhere to. The glue I'm using is super glue. It sets very quickly, and basically it'll allow me to continue working on this pen within about a minute. There are people that choose to use epoxy to seal it in there as well. Either way works perfectly fine. For me, I've had extremely good success using super glue, so that's why I use it. And I'm just making sure that I get it all over the tube there so that it's all set and ready to go in. And I also make sure that I have a little tool there to help hold the tube so that I don't get super glue all over my hands. When I put it in here, I make sure that I spin it around as it's going on. You don't just slide it on. This way you make sure that the super glue that's on there gets on all the surfaces of the wood, and then you just push the tube in the rest of the way. Then I just repeat the same process for the second tube. With this, so far I've been very fortunate, and I haven't glued my fingers to any of the metal pieces, so I haven't had to go and tear those off, which has been very nice. But sometimes it can get really frustrating when you glue this all up and then parts get stuck to other parts that shouldn't, and that becomes a really hot mess. That's only happened a couple times, but it does get very frustrating when it does happen. So again, just spinning this on, making sure that all the glue gets on all the inside surfaces of the wood as well as the metal. And in this particular case, I think I pushed it a little bit too far in, but by the time I realized it was too late. I even tried to give it a couple love taps to make it go back down, but it didn't work. So I just got it flush. Back at the drill press, and what we're going to do now is we're going to trim down the rest of the wood. So what we want to have here is we want to have those two brass tubes to be perfectly flush with the wood itself. If the brass tubes are not perfectly flush, then your pencil is going to be too long and the parts aren't going to fit properly. They might not sit properly together. So I use a special mill that's designed for this purpose, where it'll trim down the wood and make a nice flat surface for the pens. Rather than sitting here and making you guys watch this 3-4 minute process, we'll be done in about 20 seconds. And now you can see how we have to have the brass nice and flush on both ends. And that's done for both pen blanks. Now we're set up on the lathe, and at this point I just kind of got a little bit trigger happy and wanted to start turning this pen. So I turned on the machine before I set my rest in place. As you can see here though, you can see that the grain is actually in a nice pattern. You can see the flow of the wood grain on there. It's all nice and in line, just the way we want it. That's how it's going to end up being on the pen when I assemble it as well. That grain will flow from end to end almost seamlessly. Right now I'm just going to stop talking and let you guys enjoy the process. Every now and then I stop because I want to show off how it's going to be working, but at the end of the day I'm just going to stay quiet, have a little bit of music in the background, and you guys can see what's happening. Now you may be wondering, why has he changed from such happy music to such sad music? And the reason is because very soon I'm going to run out of memory on my phone. I didn't realize that my phone was full of pictures and games and videos, and that my phone had a limited amount of space left on it. So while I was blissfully working away on my pen without a care in the world, my phone was soon going to be to its maximum capacity. And as we look at this, we're going to realize that we're going to lose 15 minutes worth of potential video, where you see the entire process of sanding, polishing, and finishing. And instead, we're left with absolutely nothing. Nothing but black. I'm just kidding. So here's the finished project though. Because I did end up losing some of that time period. You missed all of the sanding, all of the polishing, all of the finishing. So instead, you get to see the pen as it's been completed on the lathe. So it's all set and ready to go. So I'm going to take it off the system here, and we're going to get ready to go and assemble it on my workbench. Unfortunately, the process that you missed was actually quite interesting to be able to see all the different steps that go into this. And it's frustrating, but it happens. So right now I'm just making sure that I take off these two cylinders the way they are on there, because I want to make sure that I don't mess up which way the grain is showing on the pen itself. So here we are with all of our bits and a jiggly table, and we're getting ready to assemble everything. So we're going to get rid of all the components that I don't want to damage or get in the way, and we're just going to do this one piece at a time. There are special tools that you can buy and pay lots of money for this kind of stuff, but I decided to go nice and simple and use some vices that we have in our shop there. So first, we get the nib set and ready to go. We get it in our vise, and we just press it into place. I don't push too hard, I don't go too hard or too long, because I don't want to risk having the wood crack, which has happened to me in the past, where I've pushed too hard on the vise and the wood just cracks and falls right off the cylinder. Next is the actual turning mechanism itself. So we just get that held on the end, and we push that down in until we get right to the mark where it tells us to stop. Next, we get the other end of the pen, the other cylinder, and we're just going to check and make sure that I still have it lined up properly in terms of what's going to be the end and what's going to be the middle. If I don't get this right and I mess it all up, it's extremely difficult for me to remove the top part of the pen where the clip goes, and it more often than not results in other parts breaking and then me wanting to throw the remaining parts across the room. So I just check and make sure that my grains are in line, that I've got the two parts that are supposed to be together in the same area, and ready for me to put the top and the clip onto this tube. So with this, we're just going to do the same thing as we did with the nib. We just get it snug there on the top, get it in the middle of our vise, or just nice and easy squeeze it together, making sure that it's all lined up properly. Again, I'm not going to go too tight so that I don't crack the wood. And now I've got the top half of this pen done. And now we're into the final assembly. With the pen ink going in, secured in place, and then we're going to test the twist mechanism to make sure that it moves nice and smooth. And although you can't see it, I'm checking to make sure that the tip of the pen comes out nice and easy. Next is the chrome spacer, and this will be located right in the middle of the pen. And finally, we come to the part where I line up the top cylinder and bottom cylinder to make one beautiful piece of art. From start to finish, this process takes about an hour and a half, including the drilling, any of the cutting, turning it on the lathe, the sanding, the finishing, the polishing, and assembly. This is something that I love to do with my time, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please click on the like button, click on the subscribe button, and set up notifications, because even though this may be my first video, it's not going to be my last. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have yourself a great day.